Hi, and welcome to Step Into the Story. I'm Barbara Tanner Wallace here with my bestie, Donna Jones Allward. We are authors and lovers of books, and we are here to talk today about a spooky novel because it's October, so why not kick off a month of spooky novels? This week we are talking about In the Garden of Monsters by Crystal King. It's a spooky, surreal telling of Persephone and Hades set in post-war Italy. Say that 10 times fast. It's kind of a part ghost story, part mystery, and it combines the art world with the underworld.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that even covers it, but it
really doesn't. But it's probably as close as you're going to get to,
really different.
I know. So I'm going to read the back cover copy just so people watching have an idea what it's about.
That'll probably help.
All right. Julia Lombardi is a mystery, even to herself. The beautiful model can't remember where she's from, where she's been, or how she came to live in Rome. When she receives an offer to accompany celebrated eccentric artist Salvador Dalí to the Sacro Bosco, Italy's Garden of Monsters, as his muse, she's strangely compelled to accept. It could be a chance to unlock the truth about her past. Shrouded in shadow, the garden, full of giant statues that sometimes seems alive, is far from welcoming. Still, from the moment of their arrival at the palazzo, Julia is inexplicably drawn to their darkly enigmatic host, Ignazio. He's alluring yet terrifying, and he seems to know her. Posing for Dalí as the goddess Persephone, Julia finds the work to be perplexing, particularly as Dalí descends deeper into his fanaticism. Sorry, I know, Dalí is something. To him, she is Persephone, and he insists that she must eat pomegranate seeds to rejoin her king. Between Dalí's fevered persistence, Ignazio's uncanny familiarity, and the agonizing whispered warnings that echo through the garden, Julia is soon on the verge of unraveling, and she begins to wonder if she's truly the mythical queen of the underworld. It's crazy.
It is a crazy She bit off a lot.
She did bite off a lot, but it's, like we were saying before the show started, it's strangely compelling.
Oh, I couldn't stop reading it. Yeah.
No, and and we're going to dig into a whole bunch of stuff as we get going. In fact, I have so much to say about this that it might take longer than 30 minutes.
That's fine.
But first of all, look how pretty this cover
right?
is. Like, it's gorgeous.
I love it. I love how the eyes and it is this. We should say the Garden of Monsters is a real thing. I posted it on the Step Into the Story Facebook page. Some of the pictures, and there's a real video of Dalí in the garden, which is really kind of cool. And he's carrying around this white cat. It's fascinating.
So the cat plays a part in the book, and pomegranates definitely play a part in the book. And I love that the cover shows it's a version of her walking into the mouth of hell, which is one of the monsters. So it's whoever did the artwork for this, I think, did a stunning job. I always love sort of a turquoisey color, and then when you add that rosy with it, it's beautiful.
And I also like that it's kind of similar to like Circe's cover. And so it definitely reminds you of the other books that take a mythology and retell it, so that okay, this is what I'm getting, which I really like.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you start us off?
All right. I'm gonna say right off, because we were just talking about this. This is not a book for everyone. This might be a first where we say that right off, but now, when I say that is not to say that this is not well written, because I think this is brilliantly written.
Same.
I think I think Crystal's use of language was beautiful. And she does it's a wild ride though, because she does a lot of playing with reality on the page. It's a lot of the line. There's a line between, is it a dream? Is it an hallucination? Is this really happening? It's shifting back and forth. And I told you, I think it was a lot like she was trying to do the written version of a Dalí painting. And if you're not real comfortable with books that shift around and do weird things, it's not going to be for you. I think if you're comfortable going into it knowing that you're going to get kind of a weirdness, then you're going to love it. But you got to, it's not for people who are like, oh, there's a lot of oddity in here. Some of the dreams are pretty wacky and out there, and
Yep.
they serve a point. So, which when you go back, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense now. And like I said,
Yeah.
say it's not for everyone. It has nothing to do with the book itself. It's just a reader taste thing, just so you know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like there's the whole book. I mean, Dali is a surrealist, so and the whole book feels surreal. And you're right, everything's shifting and you're not sure what's true and what's not. And sometimes I found it hard to keep up
Yep.
because I just felt off balance all the time. But I think that's also deliberate because Julia was off balance all the time. And, she questions whether or not she's going crazy. Like there is something going on here. And so that
Well, doesn't it make you wonder how hard it was for her to write this? Because this seems like it would have been a challenge to write.
I can't imagine because when, like, if you're like, wow, I'm just going to write chaos, bleh, that's not how it works,
No.
right? Like when you write chaos, it's very deliberately planned to achieve a sense of chaos.
And she does it. You're constantly off balance trying to figure out what just happened. And she's,
Or who is what, or what that means, or.
And is she saying it's real? What's not real?
And there were some things that didn't get explained in the end that I thought were kind of dropped. Like, for example, all the servants, none of them speak.
Oh, I figured that out.
Well, yes and no, but she never really comes out and says it. Like,
right. She should have, because I think it's pretty clear what it is.
She mentions like the maid that looks after Julia. She explains her identity, but the rest, not so much. That's just kind of left there.
And it's creepy. Can I just say right now?
It is creepy.
She populates this book with a lot of creepy people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's also, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but there's also two characters. One is Jack and one is Paolo. And I didn't trust either of those men. But in the end, there was no real reason not to trust them necessarily. But I kept waiting for them to be more than what they were.
Yeah. Although if you were doing it from the point of view of someone whose mind was being a bit unraveled at the time, we're looking at it through her point of view. So some of what it was always done by her. So they were skewed.
Yeah, I just kind of expected that. It seemed like everybody in the story played more than one part.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
So I just felt like these two men at some point were going to play another part. They're going to have another identity or another purpose.
I was waiting for that too.
Yeah.
Well, how familiar were you with the Persephone and Hades myth?
Not. This is one of the gaps in my education that I've always thought that I really need to go back and study some mythology, and because it's so interesting, and then I never do it. And so I was not familiar, and I did find, because it's not just Persephone and Hades, that's sort of the core myth, but then there's other players that are mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'll admit I got a little confused, but I soldiered on because I knew things would come clear in the end because that's her job. And they did. But one thing that it achieved, and you always say that you really like it when you read a story and it makes you want to go Google something.
Yeah.
And I got thinking, like I read this story and I was a little confused by some of the mythology, and I was like, oh, now I really want to go read some. So it actually, rather than intimidate me, it made me curious.
Yep.
So I like that. So I mean,
for those who are watching who, like me, took mythology in junior high and can't remember a lot of it, We did
or watch the Hercules movie.
no, we did do a whole unit on mythology, and I remember some of it, but I don't remember all of it. But so Persephone is the daughter of Demeter, who is the goddess of nature. And the legend has it that Hades, who's the brother of Zeus and the god of the underworld, sees her in a field, falls in love with her, and arranges with Zeus to kidnap her and bring her down to the underworld for his bride. And that over time, she falls in love with him and becomes his queen. But what I didn't know, and this is the part that I looked up actually in Greek mythology, because so she was miserable, and he agreed to let her come up to the above world half a year, and that's how the Greeks explained winter and spring. But what I didn't get was he persuaded her before she left to eat 4 seeds from a pomegranate. And apparently in mythology, to eat the fruit of your captor means you're bound to where he lives, which is why she has to go back
for 4 months of the year.
And I never knew that part about the pomegranate seeds. So because that part was not something I knew. I just knew about he kidnapped her and she lived down there 6 months a year and came up 6 months a year. But the pomegranate seeds, and when I read that, I was like, well, that explains why there's such a big deal about the pomegranate seeds.
Yes. And
it suddenly clicked a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, I was going to say the other thing that I think I found confusing, and it's not Crystal's fault. She was trying to balance a Greek myth with Roman language.
Yeah.
And that was hard. And she did a good job with it, but I was like, everyone had 2 names because they were Greek and Roman. And, she had to balance both of that and like do the one that we all knew, but then use Italian names. It was good.
Right.
Yeah. This was a complicated book. She really had to have busted her ass.
I can't imagine, like, was there an outline, a spreadsheet? Like, I have like a zillion different colors of Post-it notes. I don't know.
No, I can't either.
I don't know. It was really ambitious.
Yeah.
And, she succeeded with it. So let's talk for a minute about the characters.
Okay.
So let's talk about Julia, first of all. And, she's our main character who may or may not be going crazy throughout the book.
Yeah. Or is she the reincarnation, which Dalí's convinced she is?
Right. Or, she's seeing like ghosty versions of herself. She's hearing warnings. She's experiencing earthquakes. Every time
green light that calls to her that no one else is seeing. No one else is feeling the earthquakes.
Every time
storm, she doesn't. No one else sees at one point. Too.
Every time she eats a pomegranate seed, she experiences this weird thing that happens. She has strange dreams. Every time that Ignazio touches her, he's hot, and she's like, "Why is he hot? Like, what is going on here?" So, like, what did you think of Julia?
I'm not sure what I thought of her. There were times when I wanted to like just slap her aside the head, because it's like, this is a crazy place. Why don't you leave? Why are you staying with these people? So there were times of that. But I imagine she was supposed to be there and she couldn't leave. I guess that was supposed to be the
right. And also, she said she needed the money.
But she did need the money. Yeah.
Dalí was offering her a nice chunk of change to model for him. And so she needed the money. And then, it was miserable, but I think she kept looking for answers, because one of the things that we learn about Julia is that she has no memory from like when she was like not that long ago. Like, she was a grown woman.
Yeah.
And she remembers, coming out of the Colosseum, but she has nothing before that. And so it's, I think there's a bit of her that wants to figure it out and who she is.
She's really drawn to the place, and she doesn't know why. But I don't know. There was something about she would have these very erotic dreams, and I thought she'd be a little more wigged out about that. But
yeah. I don't think that would wig me out as much as like seeing versions of myself. Or honestly, more than the supernatural bit, like the behavior of Dolly and Gala, I was like, y'all are crazy. I'm out, you know? So that was so well done. I know we're going to get to that in a minute.
Oh,
I,
we just jump ahead to the Dollies because they
I
were.
know. Well, okay, but first of all, I did like Julia, and I agree with you about some of the, it's kind of like in a horror movie when you're like, don't go down to the basement
Yeah, there was a
alone,
little few of that.
and then but they go anyway. I liked how she was really, really fond of her roommate Lillian, and that that was her call when she was like, okay, I don't know if I can get through the week without it. I need to call my friend. So I like that a lot. But yeah, let's
Lillian should have taken things a little more seriously. That's all I'm just going to say about Lillian.
yeah, she was kind of like, okay,
I like Lillian. I like
let's not
Lillian
panic.
seriously.
Yeah, she was like, let's not panic. And so that was kind of a relief for Julia, but then she was also like embracing it a little
It's a
too
great
much.
adventure with crazy people, right?
Like, so, and I mean, we also, before we go on to the Dollies, I want to mention that like there is sort of a love triangle here too,
Yeah.
because there's Jack,
Yeah.
and there's Ignazio, and she finds Jack super attractive and is attracted to him, and then but Ignazio is like the bad boy she knows she shouldn't touch but
And he's
wants to.
gorgeous.
Yeah, and dangerous, right?
Yeah,
So
dangerous hot man. In that, I mean, nothing's more appealing than a dangerous hot
okay,
man.
so did you like Jack?
I had trouble with Jack. There was something off about him.
That's why I kept expecting him to have like some other role.
Yeah, because there was something off, and I wasn't sure what it was. If it was just, and I think he was supposed to be off, but so you're like trying to. I think that was the point, like for you to try to figure out what he was up to. Plus,
Yeah.
what his job. We won't spoil it, but he has a very unusual job within the group.
Let's just say he's a jack of all trades.
Yes.
And I actually liked Ignazio, even though we knew he was dangerous. He felt, even though he was mysterious, he felt more honest to me.
Yeah. And you kind of figure out quickly, he's got a secret, and you kind of quickly figure out.
You know what it is. Yeah. All right, let's go on to the Dollies.
It's a good secret or a bad secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hit us up with the Dollies.
Okay. So I want to know how. I don't know anything about Salvador Dalí other than his paintings, and that he was big in Greenwich Village in the 60s because he hung out a lot with Marilyn Monroe and those people.
Right.
And Andy Warhol and that. So I know it from my last book and researching it. But
Right.
And I do like some of his paintings, the melted clocks and all that. They're very surreal, very weird. He was very weird. I don't know how accurate. I'm going to assume that because of all the detail, that this is very well researched and that he really was a narcissistic crazy man. And he did make me want to refer to myself in the third person at all times. Never called himself. He never said I. He always said Dalí.
Yeah.
And he was obsessed with her, and I could see him getting obsessed. And then I think it's implied that there were forces at work making everyone a little bit pushing the boundaries a little bit more.
Yeah.
Plus, they like to dive in things that push the boundaries a little bit more.
Yeah. But then, yes. But then there were also like every now and then he and Gala would like tell a story about something they'd done in Paris or something. And I'm like, you folks are really strange. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not sure like how many boundaries were pushed or if that was just like their normal.
If that was their normal thing, I'm glad I was never in their circle. And I'm going to
God,
that they have been that. I don't think she exaggerated it.
It would be exhausting. There were, okay, the way she wrote his dialogue though, like there's a scene where they're playing a game and it's like, describe someone, using only metaphor. And it's this big, long description of Julia. And it's amazing,
Oh yeah.
but weird and like, and I'm thinking, like, how did she do that? And there's other things that he said about art. And I kept thinking, I wonder if he really said that. Like if she did research and
I
brought
think
this
he
in.
might have, because I mean, there's no doubt that he was a genius in the painting world, and he painted in a way that few people did. So I could see that. So that might be that she used some of that as basic quotes for him. But
Yeah.
you're right. He was off the wall, and I was, like demanding to eat peacock and
like just flouncing about and
I want
like,
to now just refer to myself all the time. Wallace says we shall do. He's like,
that's it. That's it.
And then his wife, who apparently was, pardon my French, she was a bitch and a half. And apparently so. I read the author notes, and that was her.
Yeah.
Very bitter, angry, jealous woman.
Yeah. She was not nice at all. And I mean,
she had a large sexual appetite. Like I say that not being offhanded. That plays a key role in the book.
Oh, sure.
So
I think too, with Gala, she, like he was so crazy that like someone had to drive the crazy bus, and she was the one. And like there's a scene where he's being, overly whimsical, and she's like, no, you need to finish paintings because money, like,
and she's the one that was going, time is money, stop wasting time.
Yeah. And so I feel like there's probably, as much as she loves their life, I think there's also a source of frustration, and that she has to be the one being accountable all the time.
And in the author notes, it kind of implies that she loved money. She loved what his fame could get her. But she was not exactly thrilled with being that she was getting it by being tied to this clearly narcissistic, crazy guy. And yet he adored her.
Yeah.
As much as a guy like him could adore anybody.
Yeah. All right. And so what did you think of the garden? I
want to go there.
It's wild, isn't it?
I mean, the fact that I found out it was a real place, and she, the garden, remember last year, you and I took a writing workshop by Susan Meisner about setting as a character. And I would say this is one of the best examples that I've read in a long time of the setting being a character. It plays such a huge role, and it is a living, breathing thing, even though it's a garden.
Yeah, and it's her descriptions and direction, like as they go from place to place and where certain things are, it's so descriptive and detailed.
Oh, yeah. And the atmosphere was perfect. I mean, it was so gloomy and dark until the end. Then it changes. But she did a wonderful job of making it a vital part of the story.
Yeah, and like, but it was also like, it was gloomy and dark, but it was also beautiful. Like, and there were certain places where she felt safe to go, and then other places where she felt she was in danger. And so I don't know, but it always felt wild to me. Like it always felt somehow untamed. Like you really just never knew. It always felt a little bit dangerous.
Well, and it was at that point in time. And we should probably share that video of Dalí walking around it, because so many of the things he shows on his camera are in this book, like the crooked house and the mouth of the hell monster that they have her in and stuff. And, she uses all these things to reflect what's going on in the story. And at the time this book was written, the date, 1948, that thing had fallen into disrepair. It was built in the medieval time. Was it medieval or Renaissance or something? It was several hundred years old, and it had fallen into disrepair and was overgrown. So it really was kind of this dark, weedy, everything was dark and mossy, and like, you know how they go into old rocks and they're just covered with lichen, and that's what I imagined this place being, and
I
cold,
think,
clammy.
if I remember correctly from reading the note, I think it was like mid 16th century.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I can't remember, but yeah. And so, everything was kind of falling apart, yet not. And this is where a lot of her hallucinations, or are they hallucinations? A lot of that stuff happens. Like, did I really see that thing move, or did?
Yeah.
Why did I lose this amount of time? Like, she was losing hours of time. It was just.
Yeah.
It was a really different book. So, lastly, Crystal King is known for writing about food.
Yeah.
All her books contain very long, very multiple descriptions of exotic foods. And this was my first Crystal King book, but I know that her readers expect her to have a lot of food. And I do read her blog, and she has a lot of food stuff in it and recipes that she's tried. And this was no exception. There was a ton of food in this. I thought she used these meals to kind of push the plot forward. But what were your thoughts on this?
Honestly, so again, really amazing description, like just so much detail. Foods that you would not expect, and so much of it, like courses upon courses upon courses. So
they all have the same color.
Right. So
that
like
was the
one
coolest
course
thing.
would be,
Red meal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to confess that I had my first black pasta a couple of weeks ago, and it was cocoa pasta,
Okay.
and it was so good. It was stuffed with sweet potato and something else, and anyway, it was delicious. But yes, I was given a bowl full of like black stuff, which when you try to relate like your visuals with what tastes good, that's not usually what comes up. Like eating something black is generally danger.
Yeah.
but it was really good, unless it's cake.
My niece went to a black food festival in Germany. So she sent us photos, and everything was like, here's my black hamburger on my black bun with my black fries and the black vegetables.
Right.
And I was like, she goes, no, everything was black, the black drinks. And she said it was weird, but it all tastes great. But she said, you do have to get past the fact that it's all black.
Yeah.
But they were also exotic, weird foods.
Yeah. So I had two thoughts about the food beyond them, pushing the plot forward and just being so like it was a sensual experience.
Yeah.
Number one is, how the heck did they manage to cook all of those things in one day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because every night was that way. And then their luncheons in the middle of the day were also like really elaborate. So I'm like, who's doing all this cooking? And is it like Harry Potter where, suddenly they just all show up on the table? No, I don't know.
It's untalking people who worked in the kitchen there.
It
was like 3 of them.
And so, so there was that. And it was also, there was so much food. How could you possibly eat it all? Like, we had Thanksgiving dinner on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I had one plate of food and one serving of dessert. And I was like, my belly hurts.
You're complaining about your tryptophan coma.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't have to sleep all weekend because I ate turkey. But like, I just thought, where are they putting this all? Like,
there was just giving them the special liquid that like.
Oh, right, the Elysium wine. But
what was funny is how they all took it for granted that they were just going to get this. Like, well, Julia didn't. Julia was amazed, but like Dalí just assumed that yes, you are going to serve me a 9-course meal of expensive exotic foods. because
like,
I'm Dalí.
and not even that is the decoration too, right? Like,
Oh, everything.
like at the very last dinner, it's like things made out of paper mache and costuming and stuff, and it's like, where did all this come from? Like,
Oh, I know. I would have
okay,
loved to fly in the wall to actually see them.
how did this happen in a place where they don't even have a telephone?
That's a good point.
So, like, I will admit that kind of, I was like, what kind of sorcery is this? And then, yes, where did they put it all? Like, those were the two things. But you came up with something a little more like practical
Well,
as
it was
well.
the only, and then, so in fairness to Crystal, this book is supposed to not be real. So,
100%.
because I was like, it's 1948 in Italy. They had food shortages until like 1946. So where does he get like fish gel and snail and peacock and zebra or whatever? All these exotic foods. I'm like, where's he getting it all? Because they're still struggling to eat. It's a poor, war-torn country still. And but you have to suspend a lot of you suspend
Disbelief. Yeah.
because yes, none of that is actually going to happen. And if it were really me, those questions would be like, where are they coming up with all this? And none of the characters, they all took it for granted that this was going to happen. And I think you have to suspend reality and accept that the minute they entered this little castle, mansion, whatever it was.
Castello, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. That reality disappeared. The minute they entered that whole village, reality disappeared.
Yes.
And that, like, because there's like one train that goes in and out every week. And it's like this little village that's an insular village that no one else is in. And it's like all these little these little buildings, and like all the people are kind of weird. So you realize that when she stepped off that train and went into this garden area, the Sacro Bosco, she was left reality. And once you accept that, then all these other weird things, you're like, oh yeah, there's another weird thing happening. Because,
I mean, completely different, and yet it is sort of like, Hogwarts and Hogsmeade.
in some ways it
in
is.
In that it's like its own it's a whole microcosm of craziness.
Yes. And she definitely stepped off into the whole other world.
Yeah. What I really liked
Take your pick.
Yeah. What I really liked about it was that, like, she did not hold back, and she went in, like, she jumped in with both feet.
Yes.
And just kept going. And I really, really like that, because I think as a writer myself, I would be tempted to pull back from pushing some of those boundaries. Yeah, and she was just like, nope, we're going full crazy here, and it's great.
I admired her for that, and the language. I thought she had such beautiful descriptive language.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very jealous of that. And yeah, I'm a little jealous of the fearlessness, because I myself battle that, and she jumped right in. Like, okay, you know what? We're in Dalí's land now, and nothing's going to be right.
Every character had their own voice too. Yeah. I just realized that, like, if you pulled something out, you could probably tell who was speaking.
Yeah, they did all have very distinct.
Yeah. And very different personalities too. So, like, you could tell if it was Julia speaking, or Lillian speaking, or Gala speaking.
Or you definitely could tell if it was Dalí.
Yeah. And then even Jack, right? Jack's the all-American guy, but Paolo is
yeah.
Yeah, and Paolo is, he'll speak in Italian a little more, and he's a little more soft-spoken, and like, everybody was so distinctive, and not hard to tell with the servants, because no one said anything.
Right. And all she did was warn Julia, you're gonna die. You're gonna die.
Yeah, you shouldn't have come here. Go away.
You don't belong.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Overall opinion? Oh, and we should make full disclosure, by the way. We both met Crystal. She's the loveliest woman. You've done some promotion with her.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That's coming.
I met her at the historical novel in San Antonio. Lovely woman. Lovely. So full disclosure is I do know her, and she's lovely, but that doesn't say that this book still wasn't like a trip to crazy.
Overall opinion is, I it's so oddly compelling. Like, it's not necessarily what I would choose to pick up, but once I got into it, it was like, what? Well, then what?
Yeah.
And, like, it really was a page turner. And I think she's one of those authors that I would absolutely pick up again, but I have to be in the mood for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have to be in the mood to be like, okay, I'm going to open this book and buckle up.
Yeah. And she really does know her Renaissance food. If you read her blog, she's an expert in this.
Yeah.
And so I know that the details were in the research, everything. I mean, this was so well researched.
But don't you think, as an author, I mean, I would love to hear someone say, Donna's books are like one of those things where I just know I have to buckle up. Like,
Yeah.
I would love that.
I do too.
So hopefully she loves that, because that's how I feel, is that I'd have to be in the mood for a Crystal King and then just let myself go into
Yeah,
that
I don't
world.
know if other books are like this or not. I have to look and see what her other books are like.
Honestly, I certainly hope so, because
this was clearly, if you're willing to take a chance and understand that this is not going to be a very linear, straightforward book. This is not like a World War II book where they're fighting the Nazis. This is much more like The Witch and the Tsar. Only even that was a little bit more. That was much more linear. That was another book that surprised me.
Yeah, but it was not the wild ride.
No, this was a wild ride.
It was a mystical ride, but it wasn't. This was Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train.
Yeah. And for the record, I love Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. So that was a good song. And this was a good book. If you were in the mood for a wild ride for October, I'd say go for it. And yeah, I give her so much applause for jumping in both feet and not holding back.
Yeah, it is so ambitious, and she nailed it, I think.
She did. She really did.
All right, so what's coming up next?
So we're going to continue our spooky theme, and Kimberly Brock is coming to talk about her latest, which is called The Fable Earth, which is about a woman who revisits her mother's childhood home. And it looks a little bit like it's going to be another Gothic ghost story, because there's an image in this portrait, in a picture, that she's never seen before. And did she resurrect an old ghost that passed from the Gilded Age? So I cannot wait to talk to her. I loved the Stolen Book of Eleanor Dare, or excuse me, the Lost Book of Eleanor Dare.
Yes.
And I think that we're going to talk to her about storytelling. She's done a lot of books about Gothics with that Southern Gothic feel. And she's, a Southern storyteller in the old tradition. So I'm kind of looking forward to chatting with her about what it's like to plumb the local legends.
This is getting some good buzz too. So I'm really looking forward to digging into it. I am too.
Yes, getting great reviews. So I'm looking forward to reading it.
All right. And that's 2 weeks from today, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll wrap up October with another kind of spooky story. It'll be fun.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah. So
all right.
Right now, Donna, we're real quick. We'll tell everyone what you're reading.
What am I reading? I'm reading an arc that I can't reveal at the moment for somebody that it's not published yet. It's I'm reading it for a cover quote. So I'm doing that. And then I have to choose something. I have one final Titanic fiction that I want to read, because I'm still working on the Titanic book. So I have one more and it's The Girl on the Carpathia, I think. But I have that to read, and so I'm going to probably read those two, and then Kim's. So I think that's probably where I am right now. I'm off to a book launch tonight for Tom Ryan's The Treasure Hunters Club, which is out today. It's a release today. So it's set in Nova Scotia, but I think it's I want to say Simon & Schuster, but I could be wrong. No, it might be Penguin Random House. Anyway, it's getting some good buzz too. Had a really good Publishers Weekly and Book List reviews, so that's what I'm sort of up to. How about you?
I have an hour left I know this because my Kindle told me. I have an hour left in. I'm reading Amy Tan's Backyard Bird Chronicles.
Yep.
And then I'll start Kim's. I just finished a book called Book and Dagger, which came out the 24th, and I just reviewed it and gave it 5 stars, because I learned so much about the intelligence community in World War II, and beginning with it was just created with a lot of professors and librarians and academics, and the behind the scenes things for Operation Mincemeat and the D-Day invasion and the things in Istanbul and North Africa, stuff I didn't know that, and you realize that these unknown librarians were really played such a pivotal role in us winning. Like if they hadn't done certain things, Hitler might have kept going.
You did that, and then I have it in my cart ready for my next order.
It is the book that will spawn. If you're a writer, it'll spawn like a dozen plot bunnies.
I love that for me because I could use that.
Yeah. Oh my God, this would be good. Oh my God, this would be good. And if I knew I was going to write World War II after this book, I would be all over it.
Okay.
So, all right. So we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Thanks for tuning in. We went a little over, but this book was worth talking about more.
It was.
Again, it's The Garden of Monsters by Crystal King. We will put it up on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/group/stepintothestory. And if you like our YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's Step Into the Story Books on YouTube.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
All right. See you next time.
See you later, guys.
Bye.